Hi, this is Gautam. Today is the first episode of the Night Owl podcast. So, as part of the podcast, we'll be discussing issues which are relevant for both your prelims and your mains examination. The point is to make sure that we have short discussions which are clear, concise, and conceptual. And please remember that we will be discussing specific points which will help you for either your prelims examination or your mains examination. How exactly you can use the data which appears in your newspapers. Now, if you take today's discussion, it is actually on Venezuela. Well, not true actually. We are going to look at India's energy security. Always remember that we focus more on the data points which will help us to understand broader dimensions. If you look at the articles, they are principally talked about Venezuela United States relations, but from India's perspective, the first point which you need to note is 85 to 87 percentage of India's oil needs are imported. A question is, where does it come from? If you take the recent data from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and how oil is imported, 35 percentage of oil comes from Russia. Now that's a big number considering the fact that India will have to work around the sanctions which is imposed by the United States of America. So that is actually adding 35%. And if you look at the data in November 2025, an interesting feature is what is the import from United States of America. It has actually increased to 11%. Now, if you look at both United States of America and Russia, like cumulatively, they hold close to 48 percentage, yeah, 35 and 13, 48 percentage of all the imports of oil which come into India. At the same time, who's the third and the most important player? Third player is West Asia. So the total amount of oil, Indian oil imports from West Asia is roughly 40%. So in this 40%, most of it comes from the two specific countries of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. It's only after Iraq and Saudi Arabia that we have United Arab Emirates. Now, why are we showing these numbers? Well, simply to show that Venezuela is not a important player in international affairs today, primarily because of the fact that even though it has the largest oil reserves in the world, it is not a major producer. There are a lot of reasons which are highlighted, but the point is United States sanctions did play a role in tripling the oil exports from Venezuela. Now, coming back to our important discussion, keeping Venezuela aside, look at these numbers right here. If you add Russia, United States, and West Asia, specifically Iraq and Saudi Arabia, that alone adds up to 88 percentage of oil imports. Now, the question which you have to answer is it really safe for India? Well, there are two, three dimensions to look into it. So I'll just give you the perspectives for you. First is we don't know how long we can maintain this 35%, primarily because Russian oil is being sanctioned by United States. So even if Indian refiners, Indian importers try to work around it, we do not know how far this can be sustained. And the second point to be noted, India has, if you look at the reactions from the Indian government, including the Ministry of External Affairs, India has not been extremely critical of United States actions on Venezuela. The major reason being, India is already trying to negotiate a free trade agreement with the United States. India is a victim of tariffs of 50%, 25% as part of the US trade body calculation, and remaining 25% works as a penalty. Specifically, since India is importing a lot of oil from Russia, as you can see the number, it's 35% of our needs. So, practically, this number is going to increase in the future, even if India signs a free trade agreement, and India badly needs a free trade agreement because even though if you look at commodities like marine food, which we have found ways to export to parts of East Asia, which was affected by US tariffs. If you take things like gems and jewelry, we're still able to manage, but textile and apparel industry is severely affected because of US tariffs. So one way or the other, we definitely will have to sign an FTA with USA. And as part of the FTA or along with the FTA, India will have to increase this number. Now, what is the problem here? Well, it's not about increasing number. Thing is, India is able to negotiate with Russia for a discounted price because Russia is already in a lot of sanctions. So one way or the other, they're ready to sell oil to India. But will we get the same type of concessions from the United States? The answer is we don't know. So that's one thing which we have to remember. And the second thing is From West Asia, we have a larger chunk, which is not largely discussed in newspapers. Now, 40% might seem to be a large number for you, but let me tell you, if you go back even 4 years or 5 years, we were importing close to 60% of oil needs from West Asia, which is not the case right now. So, 40% seems to be a healthy number. But again, we are still looking at three major regions for importing close to 88 percentage of all our oil, which is not the right strategy in the long term. So point being, India definitely has to look at other solutions in either Africa or it has to look at South America. We have countries like Nigeria, Angola, Egypt, Libya, which can export oil to us, even though Libya is in civil war. You have to note that. And in South America, apart from Venezuela, we have other countries, specifically Guyana. Guyana struck. I should be say. I was about to say struck gold actually, because oil is technically liquid gold in the year 2014. And since then, Guyana is becoming a very important exporter of oil. And Guyana also has a big Indian expatriate community. India should look for countries like Ecuador also to diversify its exports. So these two are major players in South America. And I just mentioned about Nigeria, Angola, Egypt. So the more we diversify our resources, it's much better to stay in the long term. And lastly, to wrap it up, remember, as part of General Studies Paper 3 and General Studies Paper 1 discussion, never forget this data point. India's oil primarily comes from these three regions. It's Russia, it's United States of America, and finally West Asia, predominantly Iraq and Saudi Arabia, followed by United Arab Emirates. As I told you, we keep the conversations crisp and concise, and the data points can be directly used in an examination. And finally, whatever discussion we have, it is not just for your general studies geography, but also for the optional students. That's it for today. Do leave your views regarding this discussion in the comment section. I'll meet you with the next episode pretty soon. Bye for now.